Hello, beautiful humans. I'm Alena Turley, somatic therapist, mother of 3, a wife of 1, educator, and a guide to the human experience. Each episode will explore tools, stories, integrated practices that can help you reset or reconnect and step into that deeper sense of clarity with more joy and a sense of your impact or purpose. We do not need more hustle. We need more heart, more presence, more alignment. Welcome to the Unboxable podcast. I am really excited to welcome you, and I would like you to answer this first question, which is a 3-part question. Who are you? Where are you? And what do you love to do?
Okay. So 3 big parts.
Yeah, 3
So
big
my
parts.
my name is Dr. Oscar Perez Carvajal. Most people call me Oscar though, because Oscar doesn't roll off the tongue for everybody. Um, so I'm the soul recovery specialist. I work with people on recovering from soul loss. And this is something that's been a part of my life, my entire life. I've been doing this actively, like working with clients in this for about 23 years at this point. But I started learning about indigenous and traditional forms of healing, of both emotional, physical, and spiritual healing. So I suppose more than both when I was very young. I started learning about all of this when I was around 10 years old. And I'm originally from what's now the border of the United States and Mexico. I'm from the Chihuahuan Desert. My family is from this area, has been in this area for quite a long time. Um, I think my European ancestors have been here at least for the last 400 years, and my indigenous ancestors have been here much, much longer. But my family line comes from the peoples, the originary peoples of the northern part of the state of Chihuahua in what's now Mexico, and the southern part of New Mexico and Arizona and West Texas. And who am I? I mean, I'm the culmination of everything that they did and didn't do at this point in time in my life. I am a child of the desert, but I am also pulled to travel quite a bit. And I'm someone that is always deepening my connection to my ancestors and to their approaches to living in intact ways and to healing the massive wounds of disconnection and of separation that all of us as modern people experience. Next part to the question. I'm currently in southern New Mexico, and I have been here in a place that my ancestors called Inde Bena. I have been here for the last 5 years after having spent about 15 years traveling and studying in different places. And I love this land. I'm very connected to this land, but I'm also at this moment being called to take this work that I do overseas. So I don't think I'll be here or actually, I won't be here for very much longer. Um, what was the third question? The third
I
part.
think that was it. It was who are you wearing? Or what do you love to do?
What do I love to do? I love spending time out in nature. I love I mean, for me, that's everything. I have this very strong connection to getting to know the land and our more than human relatives in the places where I live. Um, I love I love helping people really reclaim who they are. Uh, I love seeing the spark come back in people's eyes when they're truly seen and truly recognized. I love training martial arts. That's been another passion of
Yeah.
mine the entirety of my life. And I love stories. I love hearing people's stories. I love gathering stories. I love sharing stories. Um, those are a few of the things that I love to do.
It's a pretty cool list. We've got a fair bit in common, you and I.
We do, don't we?
Where to begin? I'm so excited to speak with you. So I found you because I found your book, and I'm not quite sure how. First of all, why don't you introduce your book?
Okay. So my book is called The Flowering War, and it is a book on healing ancestral and generational trauma. And it is rooted in the Toltec tradition, which is the tradition that I was born and raised in and continue to learn in. Um, but it also has elements of other traditions and other teachers that I've had. I, like I mentioned, I actively started learning these things when I was around 10, but because of my passion for martial arts and other cultures, other traditions and philosophies, I've had the pleasure and the honor of studying with different teachers from different traditions. And so the Flowering War is something that I wrote specifically for people that I've come to know as grief bearers. And in our tradition, there's this understanding that in every generation of every family, there is one person that is born that is carrying an unequal amount of the unprocessed trauma and unmetabolized grief of the family, of the lineage. And this one person is the one that has this unique capacity, this unique ability to be able to sense and see what is going on beneath the surface in those around them. And in what I call intact cultures, this person would have been recognized for that sensitivity really early on. And they would have been guided, they would have been mentored in becoming the healers of their or of their community. Um, this does not exist in modern culture. It doesn't exist in modern Western culture. So what ends up happening is that those that are born with this innate sensitivity, with this potential capacity for becoming these really powerful healers, they actually end up suffering for it more than anything else. And there are many different labels that people apply to this nowadays. The closest thing that someone could relate it to potentially is to think of this person as an empath. But there's a lot more to it than this person just being an empath, as most people understand what empaths are. And what tends to happen in this person is as they grow, they pick up on things that are going on in others around them. And, a lot of times people nowadays, they don't like to be seen, especially when they're having a hard time, especially when they're acting, let's say, against what their true nature is, or they are carrying emotions that they don't want to admit to themselves, let alone have others see.
Just a quick pause here. If what we're talking about feels like it's speaking directly to you, especially if you're ready to move beyond the daily hustle toward a deeper alignment, I'd love to invite you into the Lion Life Method. It's my ongoing support system for women who want real life somatic tools to stay resource centered and deeply connected. It's based on years and years of personal experience and training, and also brings in the help of other experts in all kinds of amazing fields. Inside it, you'll find live monthly resets and a beautiful, intimate community, and all the support you need to walk your path with confidence. To learn more and to join us, just head over to alenaturley.com or find the link in the show notes. Now let's get back into it.
So what ends up happening with the grief bearer in our culture and in our time, and again, I'm using that very broadly, right? But I mean to say the cultures of modernity. What ends up happening to that person is that they get pushed away. They get rejected because of their not only their innate sensitivity, but their capacity to perceive what is inconvenient to others. And as that person grows, they internalize this rejection. And as they internalize this rejection, very often grief bearers end up being the outcasts and the black sheep of the family or the community because they're inherently rejecting something that they intuitively feel is an undercurrent of the larger society. And these people that would be healers in other cultures and in other traditions in the modern world end up generally going one of two ways. And there's some overlap there. But generally, they go down a path of self-destruction. This is one of the most common ways that this manifests. And those of us that are lucky enough to make it through that and for some reason have some sense of guidance end up finding our way into working in healing modalities and healing capacities or
Yeah.
in capacities where we are very much interested in changing the world as we've known it or experienced it. So in some cases, it is people that go directly into healing professions, and in others, it's people that go into positions of social impact, let's say.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, so The Flowering War is a book that's written for that person. It's a book that is written for the grief bearers out there, wherever they may fall along that spectrum. I wrote it. I wrote it because I couldn't have written anything else. I wrote it because it is my life experience, and because I've spent many, many years working with people that are that person in their family, and I've worked with everything from people that have had their lives that have not been able to pull their lives together, pull their lives out of that self-destructive spiral, all the way to
Yeah.
people that are extremely high achievers that have managed to excel, even though they've faced or carried all of this on their own. And over again, what I hear from people is this overwhelming sense of relief
Yeah.
at at finally hearing that their life makes sense. Finally hearing that there is something that is a a very deep rooted tradition that understands this, understands that there are people that are born that carry more than others, and also gives them a much deeper sense of purpose and meaning in their life. I mean, the fact that those of us that are born being the grief bearers of our generation are born this way is not by any means an end point.
Mm.
It's just the beginning. It's um it's a seed, and like all seeds, it needs to be nourished, it needs to be guided. And if it isn't, then what tends to happen is a a either gradual or very pronounced self-destruction in the person that is carrying this.
Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
name mean to you? The Flowering War.
The name actually is a Toltec concept. In the Nahuatl language, it's pronounced Xochiyayotl, and it comes from Nahuatl is a language that is an agglutinated language. So words build on each other to add more and more meaning. And so the first part of that word yot is something similar to the word Tao, if we were to apply it to our martial arts background, right?
The way.
E- exactly. Yeah, it means something like the path or the way. And the Yao part before that, it's Yao Yot. Yao comes from the word Yaot, and Yaot alternately means warrior or enemy. So, or anything that is related to um, struggle, right? And or and or combat.
That's awesome.
So,
It's a great concept.
mhm. In the Toltec tradition, we understand everything as having its polarity intimately embedded within it. So things are rarely ever separated out without seeing the full context of them. That's why this word Yao alternately means warrior and enemy.
Mm,
So in the Toltec tradition, it's understood that is something that we embody internally on both
yeah.
sides, right? Um, and then the first part of that word, shochit, means flower. So altogether, shochi yao yot is the path of the the warrior, let's say, of flowers, or the path of facing the enemy, right? That leads to flowering. And
Mm,
so we have to talk about flowering if we're going to get into any of this. Um, in the Toltec tradition, flowers are very, very important as a symbol and as an understanding. So many people around the world nowadays are aware of the Day of the Dead in Mexico, Dia de los Muertos. And if not in any deeper sense, then at least with the iconography of it.
mm,
So constantly seeing the skulls and the flowers together, right? So the Day of the Dead as it exists now is actually it's a syncretic tradition. It is something that is a product of both the indigenous cultures that were here prior
yeah.
to the arrival of the Castilians, but also the Catholic influence. Prior to all of that, there was and still is this very strong awareness that death and birth,
Mm,
they are intimately connected.
I've always said that. It's a
Yeah,
portal. It's the same. It's the same portal.
absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. And so we see that arise often in our concepts and in the things that we dive into and we talk about. Now, we understand that all life on this planet exists because of everything that has died beforehand.
yeah, absolutely.
So this is independent of any um, philosophical inclinations. It's biology, right? We can look
Yeah.
at and understand that the only reason that there's any plant life on this earth is because of the decaying organic matter of every being that has died before.
Entropy and atrophy. Yeah.
So, so to understand our place in the larger cycle of life and death, we have to understand the interconnectedness of all of those different aspects of relationship that lead to the continuation, the continual emergence of life, and that death is absolutely necessary in all of that.
Have you ever noticed in families how often an elder dies and a baby is born within the same couple of weeks? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great
Hmm.
example of that.
Yeah. And there are quite a few traditions that believe that the the new generations that are born are actually the ancestors that
Yeah.
are being born into.
Yeah, in my
grandchildren, great
Cap
grandchildren.
culture, there's a belief in reincarnation.
Hmm. Yeah. So flowers. In the West, there's this idea that flowers are associated with youth, that they are
Interesting.
associated with like the springtime of a person's life.
Right.
In the Toltec tradition, it's actually not seen that way. In the Toltec tradition, a being reaches their flowering time shortly before they die.
That makes so much sense. I love that.
Because again, if we look at how things are with plants and with trees in nature, the
Yeah.
blooming, the flowering
Yeah.
happens right before the fruiting, and then everything dies away.
Beautiful.
So to become a flowering being means that you are someone that has lived, consciously lived your life, and you have digested your experience in your life. And by living your life and digesting that experience, you have become something that that blooms and beautifies the world. So,
And nourishes actually contributes fundamentally to nourishment, right?
well, absolutely, absolutely. Um, but so flowers, they beautify the earth, but they're integral in bridging that continuity of life.
Mm,
Without flowers, right, there would be nothing to attract pollinators,
right.
and the pollinators wouldn't be able to keep that cycle of living and dying going. Right? So flowers are seen as the culmination of a cycle. And the the idea with this flowering war is that throughout the course of our lives, we will go through many different cycles on the path to becoming these flowering beings. When you are actually the embodiment of a flowering being, what it means is that your way of living in the world actually breathes life into life.
It's beautiful.
Not not like as a function of your career or what you
Right.
produce, but just the very essence of who you are.
And how
You
you walk through life.
absolutely, you become someone that is life affirming and
Right.
that is so fully alive that it inspires those that are around you to want to be fully alive as well.
That's so cool.
So, so this concept of the flowering war, it is all about how in our life we have many enemies that need to be faced, that need to be um, witnessed and transformed and transmuted. And all of those enemies exist inside of us.
Mm,
The the work, the healing work that we do is all for the sake of being able to transform those things inside of us that would otherwise make us forces for what is life destroying or life devouring instead of what is life affirming. And so in this tradition, there's this very, very deep level of understanding and of commitment to doing our own work to heal whatever traumas or resentments or jealousies or hatreds may exist inside of us and to heal those things at the core so that we can fully become these flowering beings. Because what we don't heal inside of us, we project outward
mm,
and attack it there. So the flowering war is this, it's a path to progressively and consistently seek to clear up and to heal whatever wounds that we carry that we've incurred in our lives and that have been passed down to us through our generational lines.
Pretty cool, Oscar.
Thank you. Just a short description right there.
I don't think I've allowed enough time for this podcast episode. We're going to do a part two. Okay, I'm
Right.
telling you now.
There
So,
you go.
um, first of all, I have to say something just to keep the lightness in here. Have you ever watched a show called How I Met Your Mother?
I haven't, no.
It's a
No.
comedy about a bunch of friends in New York. It was a long running. It's a comedy, but it's also a clever comedy. And there's a running
Hmm.
joke around a wedding in this show where the groom keeps talking about the ring bearer,
Hmm.
but he says the ring bear. And his wife keeps saying, "You mean ring bearer?" And he says, "Yeah, that's what I said, ring bear." And she's like, "You
Hmm.
mean," and he's got this reputation for going over the top. And of course, he gets a real bear to carry the ring. And like it's this running joke throughout the show. But I was laughing when inside when you were saying grief bearer and grief bear. I was like,
Hmm.
this is the thing that, although it's extremely serious and has massively
Hmm.
affected my life, I also feel like there's a lightness to this conversation that is not always there when we talk about
Hmm.
such deeply affecting things, and
Hmm.
to bring some light and space and breath into a topic like ancestral wounds or trauma or, the hurt
Hmm.
that leads you to addiction or self-sabotage or, self-destruction, as you said, that's an amazing thing. Like to be able to breathe some air into that is, for
Hmm.
me anyway, a very refreshing experience.
Hmm.
And it's really important, I think.
Yeah,
So thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you for writing the book because it's definitely something that when
Hmm.
I read it had that recognition, as you mentioned. And, we've chatted outside of here and you did say there's a spectrum of grief bearers and I'm pretty up there, and I would say that's true.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons I think that I do martial arts is because it contributes to my ability to transmute and transform.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily have what you mentioned, that people around me that know what to do with this, although I have sought them out. And I was going to
Hmm.
mention it's quite funny how many of my friends are probably also grief bearers and have also found their way through.
Hmm.
So, talk to me about the relationship for you between this concept and this way of experiencing life and the martial arts. Talk to me about how you found the martial arts and what it does for you.
Okay. Well, the martial arts have always been there for me. I can't really tell you, like, I can't point to a specific time and say this is where it started. Um, as far back as I remember, I've been obsessed with martial arts. And I do remember there was this movie, this American movie called The Last Dragon that came out in like the mid 80s. And I remember going to the theater with my aunt when I was very little to go and see this movie. And this movie was produced by this man named Barry Gordy from Motown Records. And so Barry Gordy actually had different musicians at the time make songs specifically for
Oh,
this
awesome.
movie. And when I was a kid, after seeing this movie, wherever I was, that the songs from the movie would start playing, I would start just like fighting invisible enemies. And like it didn't matter where I was. Like I could be in the grocery store.
That's
I could
great.
be my mom talks about how she was driving down the freeway and this song came on and I like got out of my chair, the like car seat, and was like fighting off invisible enemies in the back
Fantastic.
seat of the car. Um, but I suppose that's one of my earliest memories of martial arts and martial arts movies. Um, I had a neighbor that my older brother really looked up to that was obsessed with Bruce Lee, and I know that that was there too. But I started begging my mom to put me in karate lessons or
Yeah,
some kind
great.
of martial arts when when I was very little. And she resisted for the longest time because I was had quite a temper as a kid. And so she, she was afraid that putting me into anything like that would actually encourage me getting into more fights than I already got into. And then at a certain point, we were at this like neighborhood. We were at this YMCA
Cool.
and we were leaving and like so many of us too, like I was diagnosed with ADD really young and there was the whole thing, like constant struggles with my teachers.
Yeah.
Because they said that I never sat still and I didn't pay attention and all this stuff. And so we're leaving the YMCA and my mom sees this flyer that says, "Does your child need discipline?" in big bold letters. And she picks up the flyer
Sign me up.
and it was a flyer for karate classes.
Fantastic.
And so that finally convinced her and I started there and yeah, I've been training ever since.
Amazing. So you've been training
Yeah.
a fair while. I don't know how old you are, but I imagine that's a fair while.
hmm Yeah,
Wow.
I've been
That's great.
training about 36 years.
Where do you train now?
Now, mostly I focus on boxing actually.
Yeah, so
Boxing
cool.
and Kali. Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
What's Collie, just for people?
Kali it's an umbrella term for arts from mostly from the Philippines. Mostly from the Philippines, but there are like three main Filipino branches. They're Kali, Arnis, and Eskrima that people know of the most. And Kali is one of those that, depending on who you talk to, it varies where they say
Yeah.
it comes from. But
And are
yeah,
you drawn to that because of the people that were teaching it, or because of the cultural aspect, or what's
I
the
was drawn to it because of the efficiency.
right? Cool.
So, so when I was a kid, where I grew up, there was a lot of violence around me.
Mm,
And I learned really quickly training martial arts that the colors of a person's belt didn't necessarily translate to what happened in the street. I had I had friends that I knew that got black belts, really young, and we'd be there at our school or in our neighborhood, and just kids that had never taken a day in martial arts, but were very used to fighting,
yeah.
would just make short work of these kids that had colored belts.
Yeah.
And like a big part of training martial arts for me was also just being around the reality of that, where I was very interested more than anything in what is useful and what's effective
Mm,
in a real confrontation.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, I trained traditional Japanese arts for quite a while, but my sensei would also teach something that he called Zen Bujutsu freeform fighting, which
Cool.
was MMA before MMA became a thing.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And so I would train that with him. And then years and years later, I met my first Jeet Kune Do concepts instructor, and that's the whole martial philosophy that Bruce Lee was about. But it's very different than anything in the movies.
Yeah,
And I
sure
met
is.
him, yeah, I met him after after I'd spent some time living in Rio de Janeiro, and I'd had some experiences down there that when I came back, I thought, I really want to get into something that is more combative. And
Cool.
so yeah, my instructor in these combative arts was a phenomenal martial artist. And he was the one that really introduced me to Kali and Silat and a few different kinds of training arts.
Are you
And
still
so,
training full contact?
oh no, no, I had
No, thank you.
no. On my 30th birthday, I trained with Danny Nosanto, who's really, really well known in all of this, and he's the really the carrier of the lineage
Mm,
of Jeet Kune Do concepts. He's a incredible, like phenomenal martial artist. And back then, I was still training and fighting full contact. And he found out it was my birthday, and he walked up to me and he said, "Are you still training full contact?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, if you want to get to my age and still be able to do any of this,
stop.
that needs to stop today."
Yeah. Yeah, because martial
And
arts for longevity is a really interesting topic, which I'm sure we could nerd out about for
yeah,
hours.
yeah,
Um, and you did that. You
yeah,
listened.
it's a very different thing. Not at first. Whoever listens at first.
So, how many injuries did you have to get till you stopped?
Um, Not that many. It was more like old injuries started acting up more.
Right. That's where I'm at right
And
now. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
And
interesting, isn't
then
it?
yeah. And then I realized this. I thought, okay, maybe
Yeah.
there's something to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually one of the, founders in inverted commas of modern Hapkido, which is the style that I do, just died last week. His name was Jihan
Mhm.
J. And I was very lucky to train with him many, many years ago, my first iteration of martial arts training. And in that first iteration, I trained a fair bit with the guy that brought Hapkido to Australia. And he
Mhm.
talked a lot about efficiency as well. It's a very important concept. And I often talk about it with students that I'm training with. And it's often not explicitly mentioned, but I think it's so key. But I
Mhm.
love what you said about, if you have grown up around risk and real physical danger, it
Mhm.
puts a different edge on your training, right? And a different
Yeah.
need. And I was the same. I was a single woman living in fairly dodgy parts of Sydney, and I did end up
Mhm.
using it a few times, and thank goodness I had it, and thank
Mhm.
goodness it was effective and efficient because yeah, it's total game changer. But I also think certainly
Mhm.
for a woman, being able to walk down the street without the posture of fear makes a very big difference.
Mhm.
And personally, it makes a huge difference for me just having that vehicle for self mastery, like physical self mastery. And there's that huge philosophical element as well, right? Do you instruct now?
Mhm.
Are you an instructor?
I don't actually. I don't. I haven't taught in some time, mostly because I live in I live about 30 minutes from the
Mm,
nearest town.
it's a fair way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there came a point I had students and I taught for a long time too, but there came a point where I just realized that wasn't where my energy was best
Yeah.
allocated, right?
So you train by yourself now?
I do.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
awesome.
I do. Yeah. And again, it's very different now than it was before.
Sure.
Now a lot of it is more personal refinement through movement.
Yeah.
I'm also no longer in the stage in life where there's a high probability of my having to get into
Right.
a
Different
street
need.
fight or anything like that.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
right. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Well, for
Yeah.
those who are not martial artists, we will change topics now
Hmm.
because not everybody is excited about this topic as I am, I'm aware. I
They
wanted to
should be.
ask you, I know they should be, right? I
Absolutely.
um I just found someone today. I'm really excited. I just found a woman today who's going to help me do some strength and conditioning because I've come to that place, I turned 54 yesterday or day before and I'm at that
Happy
place now.
birthday.
Thank you. And I know like I just did my second degree black belt grading. It was amazing, but my
Hmm.
body needs some extra something else to
Hmm.
be able to keep training at the intensity that I train at with,
Hmm.
18 and 20-year-olds at the same level. We don't do full
Right.
contact. We don't do, fighting. We spar, but we don't do full contact without gear. And I
Hmm.
don't really do that at all anymore, but I still need to be able to spar and flip in the air and land on the mats and all those things. So I need to be strong, and I'm really
Hmm.
excited to say I found a woman today I'm going to try doing some strength and conditioning with, because to support a body to keep training at high intensity is the only way to keep training. It has to
Hmm.
be a daily practice. So it's exciting.
You
I
know,
wanted,
that's one of those things that I do really appreciate, I do really love about the Filipino martial arts. I had
mm,
one of my instructors told me years ago that from that perspective, that one of his teachers taught him that from that perspective, you don't hit your prime until you're 80, until you hit your
yes,
80s.
it's awesome.
So you're never, I think again with a lot of modern approaches to athleticism, people think there's a certain point relatively early on, your 20s, your 30s, you hit that and then you're done.
Mm,
Um, but this perspective is it's so much more built for longevity and for the actual refinement of the self through the training,
yes,
through the practice,
100%.
you know. Yeah. So I really like that.
Do you think there's a relationship between trauma or a history of trauma and the martial arts?
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. Hands down. Um, well, I know it's not the case for everybody. I mean,
Yeah,
I've met a lot of people throughout the years. The
yeah,
most intense people that I've met training and teaching martial arts are
yeah,
people that have a history of trauma.
yeah.
And and I think it's interesting. My organization is called Tending the Fires, and the
Mm,
name actually comes from a time in my life where I was training really intensely with people um, that were contractors, trainers for different federal agencies.
yeah,
And the kinds of things that we were doing were very different um, than what people think of as martial arts and that what people think of as combative sports.
yeah.
So it was very different than like MMA or Muay Thai
Mm.
or
Is it
Jiu-Jitsu or any of
defensive?
these kinds of things. No, no. Um, all of this stuff was it was very straightforward and very aggressive.
Yeah,
And and there was this point in time in my life where I thought I was going to dedicate myself to that. And
yeah, it'd be
so
interesting.
I'm talking about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And the people that I was training alongside and that I was teaching with, I got to know all of them pretty well. And I realized that for a lot of us, this is how we dealt with life. Um, but didn't process the roots of why we thought it was so important to learn how to be good at violence.
Yeah.
And and there came a point where I realized like all we're doing is just adding fuel to this fire.
Mm.
We're
So
building
therefore
and we're
tending the
building and we're
fire.
building.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And I saw that really take its toll on a lot of people that
Mm.
were very close to me, um,
Yeah.
including my instructor that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I
Sorry, that's hard.
act, mhm. Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people lose their way again, either with addiction or or really struggling with depression and things like that.
Yeah, we've lost
And
some people in our community as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so for me, that made me take a very strong turn into the work that I do now because
Mm.
I realized that you can't have one without the other. Like
They're
you
hand in
can't,
hand.
right? It's like there's this old Irish saying, right? Never give a sword to a man that can't dance or a person that can't
Beautiful.
dance,
I love that. That's
right?
great.
And I think that's very apt when it comes to martial arts at a certain level
Mm.
as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's so
Yeah.
interesting because I took some big emotions into my last grading. I think I talked to you a bit about it already, and I've shared a little bit on
Yeah.
this to various people, and it was a really challenging experience because the things I would normally rely on to keep me present during, you know, six
Hmm.
hour mental, emotional, physical test, right? Where you have to be
Hmm.
so focused, literally, otherwise you hurt yourself. You have to be so
Hmm.
focused. Those tools were not working for me because I was so emotional from some grief, from some losses in our family last year.
Hmm.
And it was fascinating what came out of that. One was ego death, which has been
Hmm.
really interesting um, because I thought that had already happened, but it hadn't, you know, so there's always layers of that, right? And
Yeah.
then, and then, you know, the overachieving people pleasy, like wanting my instructors to see almost to reward them for the effort they've made with me by being amazing. You know, I wasn't able to fulfill
Hmm.
that. That was really challenging. And the other part of it that was interesting was that I was visibly not coping through some of it. And, you know, my instructors and the masters in our group, I mean, they know me, they know what I'm capable of, and they could see I was struggling. And what came out of it was this really interesting conversation about the interplay between emotion and trauma in the martial arts. And that's a
Hmm.
great conversation to be having with, you know, some men, some of whom have been training for like 40, 50 years, but maybe haven't
Hmm.
experienced trauma. So it's been really interesting for them to be in conversation with them about that and about how we handle that as a community going forward, because there are so many people
Hmm.
coming into our martial art with some sort of history of trauma. So that's fantastic, right? I mean, it's an
Hmm.
evolving conversation, but that's been really interesting. And it caused me to reflect on how I think in the more intact original forms of martial arts, it was built in because there was so much philosophy. There was so much
Hmm.
incorporation of emotional understanding that maybe some of that's gotten a bit separated out, you know. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting area. But enough about me, more about you. I would love to ask you a little bit more. What was I going to ask you about? I had so many little squiggles from when you were speaking at the beginning. You said something about the wounds of disconnection in modern
Hmm.
cultures.
Hmm.
Can you talk to me about that? Because I'm pretty sure that's what I do too. I help people with those also.
Okay. Okay. So for all of us, for all of our ancestors, there was a point in time where every aspect of their life was intimately connected with with the land, with the seasons, with, you know, what I call our more than human relatives, where every single aspect of your life related directly to who you share this earth with, who you share this planet with. And that extended into being able to understand the large and the small cycles of life and of death. So being able to understand the larger cycles, meaning the cosmic cycles and how they influence things here on the earth and how we are influenced by those things as well. And there was this point in time where the interconnectedness of every single relationship that lends itself to our life was conscious or
Mm,
was something that we were aware of, and it was woven into our way of being over and over again through our daily activities, through the stories of our people, through ceremonies and rituals that would be done at different stages of the year and at different
yeah.
stages of a person's life. And beyond that, when people lived in much smaller groups. So you were a relative to everybody in that smaller group, and they were a relative to you. There was this level of interconnectedness that started not just with you as a human being and other human beings, but extended beyond your humanness to every other aspect of life and of death. And
So
so is
I've
this,
always believed this since I was a child. And
mhm,
I'm pretty sure it's the reason I have a Maori child, New Zealand Maori people. And
mhm,
I've been so blessed to be part of their community because they have this, what you're talking
yeah,
about. It's powerful.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, a lot of modern people don't know what the purpose of their life is.
It's not valued, actually, this stuff in a lot of contexts. Mm.
Right. Um, so our ancestors living in these ways understood that they are an integral part of all aspects of life on the planet.
You saying this is a purpose in itself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And and it goes beyond that as well, right? It goes beyond that as well. Because in studying with different intact cultures, what you see is this overwhelming awareness that we're not by any means at the top of any hierarchy,
Mm.
right? We are one of many threads that weave life into being. And our work is to serve what makes life happen, not to be served by it. So this great like modern sickness of separation, it starts right there. It starts because sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh, I'm talking about social isolation, talking about, people having social
Mm.
anxiety and
I
not
don't
being able
think
to
that, but I
relate
know.
to other
Yeah, that's
people.
right. Mm.
But it is so much more than that. It is
Mm.
so much more than that. Um, we're earthlings, and very few people can actually walk outside of where they live and know the names of the plants that grow there,
Mm.
or know and be able to
Yeah.
recognize the birds where they live, or
Yeah.
even point to and understand where the sun rises at different points of the year.
Yeah. That I find that wild because in the work, one of the modalities I use, we ask people to face north, and the amount of
Hmm.
people that go, I don't know, it blows me away. It's really true. I think this is
Hmm.
fascinating. We're very fortunate in Australia. We have, well, some of us have connection and understanding of Aboriginal cultures. And in Aboriginal cultures, there is this concept of custodianship, that the
Hmm.
land is not owned by us, but is cared for by us. And it's a
Hmm.
beautiful concept that aligns with what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um,
How does that translate in your life? Who do you live with? Who do you have in your
Coyotes
circle?
and javelinas. Um, so that's okay. I live in a place that's called the Gila National Forest, where I live. And I'm in the southwestern corner of it. So here where we live, it's I people would call it pinon juniper scrubland, right? Because we have certain kind
Cool.
of pines here that are called pinon pines. And predominantly what we have are pinon pines and junipers and ponderosa pines. And
Beautiful.
at the same time, we have different kinds of cactus all over the place.
Gorgeous.
Um, we're at about 6,000 feet,
Mm,
but
beautiful.
it's more like high desert here where I live.
That's cool.
And we're surrounded by deer, by a kind of deer that's called mule deer. Um, and we have a like a local group that comes here through our property pretty much every day that we see. Um, it's about 12 or 13
Wow,
individuals in
amazing.
that group.
Do you have
We
kids, Oscar,
have
that you show all of this to?
I don't. No, not yet.
Not yet.
Um, no, but but yeah, I mean, who do I live with? I can go off and tell you all of the different ones that
Amazing.
I live with. Yeah.
Mm.
And my wife and our dog and our chickens.
Yeah, great. It's awesome.
Hmm.
What an amazing existence to be out amongst it. I'm sort of out amongst it. I live on the
Oh
edge of
yeah.
a city, but I just face a huge amount of bush. And since we moved here,
Hmm.
I feel incredibly different being around so much. I mean, we were around more like ocean wilderness
Hmm.
before, which is very different. But being amongst the trees and amongst the habitat and the plants and the animals, it's a really incredible experience. I feel very lucky.
Hmm.
And I think it does change
Yeah.
us. I think that
Yeah.
interconnectedness that you're talking about is something that, as you say, the value can get lost in our modern world. And it takes a real
Hmm.
active and decisive and intentional choice to stay in touch
Hmm.
with it, you know. But I also
Hmm.
believe that it affects massively how we feel and how we're able to operate, as you say,
Hmm.
as life givers, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
Very powerful.
Yeah. For years I worked with an addiction recovery center,
Mm,
and I saw hundreds of people come through that center. And it was really interesting because, we'd have people from all walks of life, from,
yeah. Yeah.
recently out
Doesn't
of prison
discriminate.
to recently off the street to CEOs
Yeah.
and things like that. But one of the things that I would give my groups that I led there, that I would give them as homework was to go out and to learn the names of 5 different local plants
That's great.
and to get into the habit of greeting them
Yeah.
either right verbally or to themselves every day. And then I stacked that on and had them learn 5 different kinds of birds and go and do
Beautiful.
that. And I wouldn't tell them why. I would just give it to them as homework. Just say, go and do this. Right?
Yeah.
Do it for a week
Yeah.
and
It's
then
pretty
come back and tell
powerful.
me how it's going.
That's great.
And I would have them for up to 7 months. So I would
Mm,
start them with this really early on.
it's cool.
And over time, I'd go for walks with them, and they knew the place where they lived better than they ever had before because
Yeah.
of
So
this.
good.
And it it tangibly changes a person's sense of belonging in a way that like the modern mind would never think of that, right? You would never really consider
Well,
it.
so many of us are displaced from our original land
Hmm.
as well.
Well, but we're all from the earth, so we
Right.
can learn wherever we are, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
I I think that's another thing. Because so much of my work centers on helping people heal these ancestral traumas.
We haven't even talked about that yet.
No, we haven't yet, but
I gotta go
the
soon, Oscar. We have to do this
I know
again.
you do. I know. Um, but so the biggest ancestral wound we all carry is being separate from the land.
Mm,
And that doesn't mean the land where your ancestors were from. It means the earth, period.
the earth itself. So give me 5 symptoms of this. How do you know if you're carrying this ancestral wound?
Um, do you suffer from anxiety?
Yeah, that's the number one, right?
That's
This is
that's
every client I've ever
one of the
seen.
biggest
Yeah.
ones.
Hmm.
Yeah. Inflammation,
Hmm.
like actual physical inflammation in the
Yeah.
body.
Mm.
Um, Addiction or addictive behaviors,
Hmm.
depression. Um, a really big one is having very intense emotions or emotional responses
I was
that
about to
don't
say that.
seem to be attached to anything, that don't
Yeah.
seem to be connected
Unpredictable
to anything.
emotional outbursts, internal or external. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a laundry list,
Yeah, I
but
know. How long have you got, right?
yeah.
but it does seem beautifully simple. And you do talk about this in your book a little bit, like a few practices.
Hmm.
And I would highly recommend, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Um, I'd highly recommend that you read or listen to the book. But there's some great practices in there. And so much of what we're talking about is in my language, I guess, coming home to yourself, but not coming home to yourself that is mired in the hallmarks of a modern culture, but coming home to your whole self, the parts of yourself
Hmm.
that have previously been difficult to access or disconnected in some way. And I do feel like our connection to land and earth is a lot like, the great mother, like the idea that we all come from and go back to the same place. And our disconnection from that and from the rhythms of that and that beautiful nurturing and nourishing concept of, we all depend on each other, but most of all, we depend on the earth. And not just the earth, but natural systems in general. That's the source of so many of our issues and symptoms and pains
Hmm.
and hurts. But it's not as simple as, oh, I'll just connect to the earth. Like we carry also, I think, memory and damage, I guess. I don't like
Hmm.
using that word, but it's how it feels. Like something's not right.
Mm. Wounding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wounding. Yeah.
Yeah. So this goes a very, very long way.
Mm,
And it's something that, you know, I mean, nowadays you hear so many people like talking about calling themselves healers and shamans and this and that and the
mm.
other.
I really resist those words, actually.
If it's not tangibly connected to the land and the
Yeah.
cycles of the cosmos, it's got nothing to do with shamanism.
Yeah, I agree.
And I
Even the
think
idea of healing is problematic for me because it
mhm,
implies in our Western sort of minds that we're fixing it, right? But as you
right.
mentioned so much before, the wounds are the gifts. They are the same. We're not trying to remove a wound or heal or
Hmm.
fix. For me, it's more about, as you say, the transmutation, the transformation, the integration.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's about learning how to live.
Yeah,
And
well said.
all of this has to do with grief.
Mm,
Every
so
aspect of it
does.
has to do with grief. And
Yeah.
grief isn't something that you complete.
No,
It's
and women carry
not
grief
something
in
that
their
you heal,
womb. Yeah.
right? It is something that you learn how to tend
Yeah. I love that.
because going back to what I was initially talking about the connection between birth and death, every aspect of life is something that is here and is gone.
Mm,
Every aspect of it,
mm.
right? In order to be fully alive, you must be fully aware of the grief required to be fully alive.
Yeah, right. To live is to grieve. It's true.
You-
Mm.
yeah, you don't, nobody gets to separate the two.
No, and especially if you're bearing that load, that ancestral load that you mentioned as a grief
Hmm.
bearer. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of work that is done there and can be done there,
Mm.
which is why I was saying a grief bearer ideally doesn't stay there,
Yeah.
right? Um, to be born as a grief bearer is to be a seed, right?
Mm.
And an acorn isn't automatically an oak tree.
Yeah.
It has to go through a whole process of
Yeah.
growing and of nourishment and of withstanding storms.
Oh, yeah.
So grief bearers are born carrying more than those around them, but really it's our work to process that more.
Yeah.
And in the process of it, learning how to actually tend to the new waves, let's say, or layers of grief that arise in life.
Yeah.
And in that, we become useful to others because we
Yes.
become those that have the capacity to guide them through their own processes
Yeah.
so that their stuff doesn't get heaped onto the grief bearer that is down the line
Mm.
from them in their family and in their generation.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not all left behind, I guess.
Mm-mm.
I literally have a client
No.
turning up in a moment on my front doorstep.
Okay.
I have to go. I wish I didn't have to go. Next time I'll
Yeah.
allow 2 hours for our conversation.
Right.
Um,
Sounds good,
Oscar,
Alena.
thank you so much. It's really lovely to spend time with you, and I will get some
Thank you.
information from you how people can find out more about what you do and this work.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for spending some
Thank you,
time with me
Alena.
today.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have a
I'll
wonderful
see you
day.
soon. You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here with us on Unboxable. My hope is that today's episode gave you a moment of insight, peace, or connection to carry into the rest of your week. If it did, please share the show with someone you love or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're ready for deeper support and a place to sustain your growth, you can join me inside the Lime Life Method at alenaturley.com/join, or find other resources, both free and paid, in the show notes. As you go through your week, remember that the things that separate you from yourself or from others or from nature are not nearly as powerful as the things that connect you. Until next time, go gently, my friends.